All right, let's move on here, and let's talk about Serie A, which you can watch exclusively on Paramount Plus, everybody. Who's your team in Serie A, by the way, everybody? Would love to know. Make sure that you throw in a comment and engage with us and let us know. But let's talk about Serie A. And it was the other side of Milan, Jimmy Conrad, Inter Milan, who are, taking advantage, I think, of an AC Milan who's doing a little bit of a slow turn, obviously not making it into the knockout stages of the Champions League. No Europe for them, but Inter back on top, leapfrogging AC Milan with a 4-0 win against Cagliari. Des Norris will show the table in a second, but, this basically means now that Inter are top of Serie A with Milan in second, 39 points, one under 40 points for Inter. And what do you make of Inter right now? Lautaro Martinez as well, going in double figures.
Yeah, outside of them losing to Real Madrid on the last match day in the group stages of the Champions League, when they'd already qualified, so it was really about who's going to get the top spot, which is important, but for them to get back into the knockout rounds for the first time in 10 years was a big deal. That was the hurdle they had to overcome, and they did that. They had 5 clean sheets in a row domestically, and they added another one today against Cagliari, and they did it in a way that was, again, very professional, very much like Madrid. And Lautaro has actually scored more goals against Cagliari than anybody else in Serie A. So he definitely likes making that happen. They just look good. They're also healthy, right? We talk about Madrid. They found an 11 that works for them, and now they're building off of that consistency and that camaraderie that comes with having the same 11, or maybe you tinker here and there. But it makes a difference when you can roll out the same types of guys game in and game out. And then you add a little bit of depth when you need it. But I think Inter's in a good spot. They don't have any significant injuries, and they're playing extremely well right now. And let's be honest, Cagliari's only got 1 win this whole season, and they're in the relegation zone. So if you can't beat a team that's in the relegation zone at home, then I don't know if you should be title contenders.
Yeah, these are wins that you need to take.
They have to, and they needed to take it, and they did. Whereas, in contrast with AC Milan, who are away to Udinese, who just fired their manager, so they have that new manager bounce. They couldn't necessarily get it going in the same type of way, and they needed Zlatan to save them yet again. Very similar to how Man United needs Cristiano Ronaldo to save them at times, where they need kind of that star guy to make it happen. Did they deserve more of the points? I don't know. Udinese I thought was pretty sharp, but those are going to be 2 big drop points for sure for Milan.
But this is the dangerous thing. We've talked about this so much about Ronaldo and Zlatan being a central figure to a team that now is dependent on them like a drug. They are addicted to the needs of the output of these players, and it makes it very hard to move on or change anything, because that means that to get your goals, you have to rely on a few of these players. But it ultimately means the other 10 players on the field have to play differently in order to get those goals from those players. And granted, we're talking about penalties here, and that's still a value. But when those players are on the field, your team has to play different for those 90 minutes than you would perhaps otherwise if you weren't reliant on those star players. And that's the give and take of these situations. We've been talking about this for years for Zlatan, for Ronaldo. Every year that goes by, you're like, could this be the year where the output drops? Or could this be the year where sort of the balance ends? And obviously, they're going to score forever. And as long as they're playing, they're going to score crazy goals. But I agree with you, Jimmy. It's dangerous. When I look at AC Milan right now and think about their odds or their chances of winning the title, I feel quite differently than I did. I feel very similar to the way that I did this time last year, where it just seems like, okay, now they're out of Europe. They should be able to go and get points. They should be able to focus on these types of things. But I still worry about the depth of this team. I still worry about the fact that they should be weaning off of Zlatan in terms of his output, but he's still going to seemingly the answer of when you need him on the field, which I think is not a confident thing. When you look at Inter Milan, yes, they're playing against a team in the relegation zone, but it's a clinical performance. They never let them into the match at any single point. You could feel the dominance. You could feel that it was a team fighting for a title versus a team that's at the bottom. And at times, AC Milan allow other teams to feel a little more level to them in terms of what they're bringing to the table. So I think there's a big difference there. And then when I look at Juventus and I think about Venezia, you go, wow, fantastic performance and fight from Venezia playing at home. But if you're Juventus, you're thinking, wow, okay, you lose Dybala early on in the match. But I'm thinking about the Gerard Piqué quote for Juventus too, of like, oh, fighting for a top 4. There shouldn't even be a discussion, and perhaps there isn't. And maybe I'm just reading the wrong things, that their only fight is a top 4, and they're not getting it done either. So when you think about the weekends like this that win you titles, when you think about the games that you look back on and you go, that's a turning moment or a transition moment, or when we did it and the others didn't. This is a weekend where everyone's dropping points except for Napoli.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, and there was a good comment there from Larry who said that this happened with Zlatan at LA as well. We could argue this happens to Zlatan in a lot of places that he goes to, including the Swedish national team, right? All of a sudden he comes back into the fold and Sweden doesn't play as well because I feel like their balance is off and everybody's deferring to the big star. Now, one thing I wanted to add to Milan, and I'll talk about Juve here a little bit as well, but with Milan, they made 3 changes at halftime. And I was really surprised that Tonali and Kessie didn't start. And he went with Benacer and Bakayoko, and those guys didn't look sharp. Now, I understand Stefano Pioli and the manager trying to rotate a little bit, thinking, all right, maybe we can get some out of these guys, get some rest for some other players. But they were in a certain mode. They were playing with a certain group of players that were getting results. And then when you make 2 significant changes in the middle of the field and it doesn't look good, the fact that you immediately pull the trigger and say, all right, we're just going to change it and go back to what we were doing, I think that gives some I don't know, some negative messaging to the players that like, maybe I don't trust you to show up in these games. So I think that will hurt you down the line. But similar to what I said about Atleti, and I'm trying to get a theme going throughout my comments today on this podcast, is what is their best 11? And can they continue to find that consistency? We're seeing it with Inter. We're seeing it with Real Madrid, that when they kind of stay with the same lineup, they're starting to get more results and starting to build something and getting momentum. And I think that AC Milan missed the mark in this particular game. With Juve, even though Dybala went out, they were all over Venezia in that first half. It should have been 3-0 Juve. And when they didn't finish their chances, I knew that Venezia was going to get back into that game. Aramu has been unbelievable. I'm surprised he's with Venezia. He's a tremendous player. He ended up scoring.
Yeah, but Jimmy, even Venezia in the second half, they were still 2 center backs on yellow cards, and they didn't even try to punish them in that sense or draw any. Right. Draw a second yellow, attack them, knowing that they can't poke at anything, and they didn't convert on that. I mean, it's very rare that you have 2 center backs on yellow cards, and when you have that situation, just the way the game is now, you have to attack that. You have to just force them to either allow you to go past them or stick their foot out or test that situation. I think
not having Chiesa and Kulusevski really hurt Juve. Those players that do run at center backs, that do run at wingers, right? That put you on the back foot a little bit. And I think they missed a little bit of that, especially when Dybala went out.
Yeah, no, very, very good points. I do want to go back to Inter Milan, just wrap it up with that, because I think it is commendable that, they do have financial issues, etc. That's why Antonio Conte partly left. And, they but they had to say goodbye to Romelu Lukaku and some other players and stuff. And they had to kind of retransform themselves once again under Simone Inzaghi. So it's pretty commendable that they're top of Serie A right now. Obviously, plenty of matches still to go.